Welcome to Around the 412. We are part of AllSteelers.com and proudly presented by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, fantasy, and more. You can follow Crowworthy at Crowworthy Takes on Twitter. You can visit us at Crowworthy.com. You can also check out the Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for podcasts just like this one, blogs, and more. Go check out Smitty's new blog, by the way. I'm Tyler, and with me always is Smitty. What's going on, man? Not what we were expecting.
Not what the people were expecting, that's for sure.
No.
If we've learned anything in the going on 4 years of us podcasting, it's that we got to be very flexible when it comes to this thing and having guests on. So
yeah, and I think we're pretty used to it by now. Things not falling through sometimes, but it's okay. Steelers are more important than us. We know that.
Yeah, if you were coming on this show expecting to see new defensive back Trey Norwood, unfortunately, he will not be with us tonight. Hopefully in the very near future he does join the show. So randomly, I don't know, I guess he didn't know that they had it going on today, but he has to do a one-on-one with Missy Matthews, so the Steelers needed him for media availability, and obviously that takes precedence over coming on our show, so we do not have our boy with us today.
That's okay, we'll get him back on soon.
The Swiss Army knife, that's what we're calling him. What did I see? Somebody came up with a nickname for him already. They tweeted
at us. Takeaway Trey.
Yeah.
Did have 5 takeaways last year, so hopefully that comes true.
Facts. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the Pirates first, I guess. We'll start with the Bucks and then move on to the Pucks. So I noticed when I was changing the ticker from last week's show to this week's show that I had to make it go from the Pirates being in second place to the Pirates being in fifth place. So a lot has happened with the team over the course of the last week. I mean, Polanco's on the IL now. We got Hunter Owen called up to the big club. Not a lot of things have gone well for the Pittsburgh Pirates over the last week. What I will say is, once again, one bad start, one good start. Mitch Keller, pretty solid outing last night.
Yeah, that's what I was about to bring him up whenever we were talking about the Pirates. It's like, we were literally said last week that it's literally every other start. It's like he's a different pitcher. And I just don't understand it. I don't know what to make of Mitch Keller at this point, because every other week I either want to keep him on the team and keep giving him chances, or I just want to throw him in the trash and get rid of him. And it really just depends on which week it is. But right now I'm like, okay, maybe there's still some optimism there. Next week I'll probably be pissed. It's
just funny that in the Padres, one of the best lineups in baseball too. And I know Tatis did not play yesterday. It was a scheduled day off for him. So he just came in and pinch hit later on in the game. But that's one of the more potent lineups in baseball that Mitch Keller just went out and did that against. So again, I've said this after every one of his good starts, maybe there is something to build off of there, but now he's got to stack these performances. It can't just be one and done. So we'll see how the next start goes for him. And, it's baby steps. It's just we've seen one good start in a row several times this year. Let's see if he can stack 2, 3, start stringing these things together where he's putting together quality performances. But after last week where I said, maybe the best thing for him short term would be going to the bullpen, maybe I'm like Sarge when it comes to Mitch Keller. Maybe he just needed me to say something stupid like that for him to bounce back.
Possibly. I mean, I'm a soccer fan, so sometimes that works. And Nick was making fun of Timo Werner with Chelsea. He scored a goal in his game today. So maybe those things work. Look at me with BYU. How much trash did I talk on them when they were losing at halftime versus various teams? Yeah. But, I mean, just going back to the Pirates being at 13-16, they did get the win last night. But I it sucks to watch them lose 5 in a row. But it's also how do we not really expect it? I mean, especially the teams that they're going against. They got swept by the Cardinals. I mean, it sucks to get swept by anybody, but I mean, that's the team that you're expecting to be in first place in your division. Really good team. And then they lost one to the Royals and then the Padres the other night. So, I mean, it stings to lose 5 in a row any time of the season, but you're playing some decent teams there for the most part. And so it's hard to be too upset about it. But the thing is, even if you're losing, you would hope you see some more individual performances, especially from the hitters that are doing well, and they're not really getting that either.
Yeah, that's honestly, that was one of the few topics that I was going to bring up is the offense just going cold. Even yesterday, they scored 2 runs. They were able to win the game because of good pitching. But the offense, they had a streak of 22, I think, innings without a run, something like that, 22, 23, somewhere around there. So the bats have just been silent as of late. And I think that, we only have 2 or 3 productive guys in the lineup. That's going to happen because there's going to be nights where those guys can't carry the load. So, if those guys are having an off week or so, if Brian Reynolds has a week where he's not really hitting, if Adam Frazier has a week where he's not really hitting, and same with Colin Moran, the offense is going to struggle for the course of those games because those are the only guys that have really hit this year.
Yeah, and all of those guys have fallen below 300 at this point. It's still early on in the season. They could definitely make their way back up, but the peaks that we were seeing the past few weeks of like these guys being like all-star performances, they've started to slow down rapidly and kind of join the rest of their teammates in kind of, I wouldn't say those guys are mediocre, but I mean, the rest of the team definitely has been mediocre, at least when it comes to batting.
Yeah, I think you look at a guy who has struggled as of late, like for example, Phillip Evans, who I know is capable of turning it on at any time, and he's going to be a productive hitter. I think the thing with him is he's just put in a position where he's playing like literally every single day and hasn't really gotten a break to reset, and that needs to happen. And I know that a big reason for that is not having the presence of Brian Hayes there to spell him a little bit. But if you look at tonight's lineup, actually, he is getting a night off. So that's good. He needs that to reset because this guy was absolutely crushing the ball to start the season. And you need him to be, a presence in that lineup behind those top 3 that I said. Like you need, and Jacob Stallings has cooled off too because he started off the season pretty well, especially against left-handed pitchers. But like if you have 5 or 6 guys that you can build your lineup around, that's much easier to do than if you only have 3 guys that are consistently hitting for you. And like I said, and as you mentioned too, those guys are now all under 300. Like, so when those guys do have a little bit of a cold streak, there's nobody else to pick up for that.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at the games played. So Colin Moran has played in every game that has been played so far. He's 29 games. But then you got Gonzalez has been in 27. Also, Brian Reynolds has played in 29 as well. But then Newman and Evans have played in 26. And so, yeah, he's played in almost every game this season. It's nice to get these guys a break. And you only have a roster right now that's really capable of happening all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, look at I'm surprised that Jacob Stallings has even had a break. I'm surprised he didn't even play back-to-backs because, we've talked about before, the catcher position, just not even just on the team, but the entire organization, there's really nothing there. So,
yeah,
all these guys, they're going to be playing a lot this year. It's going to be a lot of hard innings.
Yeah, they need Cabrian back in. He is hitting now in a batting cage, like actually facing like live pitching in there as well too. So like he's obviously getting closer. Not sure what that setback was, and I hope that it's easy to say. I hope it doesn't happen again. Like obviously, but you have to test that out. So they're going to keep ramping up activities, and hopefully that leads to a return here sooner rather than later. Because they need him. The fact that these guys are even still, I say that they're in last place, but literally it's by like a half game, and it's the NL Central is just so close, like 13-16. That still puts the Pirates on pace to win over 70 games this year, which is more than people would have thought to begin the year. Like that's not like a bad record at all, in my opinion. Like it's not telling to say just to say they're in 5th place. Like 13-16 is better than I was expecting.
Yeah, they're a half game back from 4th place, 1 game back from 3rd place. They're 4 games back total from 1st place.
You said is it the Cardinals?
Is it the Cardinals in first? Yeah,
because I know the
Brewers are a half game back from them.
Okay, all right.
So like they're in last place, but they're not in. It's not like they're 10 games out of 1st place. They're only 4 games back, and I'm not saying that I expect them to make that up and win the division, but it's not impossible. Like they're not in a terrible spot compared to some other teams.
Yeah, and you know what? It's cool to see when we were down, in Altoona with Jared and Bly and those guys playing there. Like Hunter Owen was on those teams, and from what I hear, just like an absolutely cool story. Like this guy, no shot like that he'd ever be in the majors, pretty much. Like that's what he's always been told. So it's really cool that he's going to make his debut tonight. I was a little surprised to actually see him in the lineup, but as I just alluded to a little bit ago, like with Phillip Evans, I think that he does need a little bit of a reset. So Hunter Owen's going to get a shot in right field tonight, and I hope he makes the most of it because, like I said, I think who was it? Alex Stump with DK. He was talking about like what a cool story it was for this guy to be here. Like, so. Shout out to him. Like I said, Polanco's on the IL. Not too much information there, but the fact that they didn't have to like make up a 40-man roster spot to get Hunter Owen up here, people are thinking it's probably COVID related. I don't want to just like completely assume that, but the fact that there was no movement on the 40-man roster to bring up Hunter Owen,
and the fact that they also didn't say what the injury is. Typically, if you get on the IL, they at least tell you like what part of the body they're dealing with. They didn't even specify that, so it could be COVID related, but and it doesn't mean he has COVID either. If it is COVID related, he could just be in contact.
Well, he already did. So like, I mean, if he does have it, he'd have it. That's be the second time that he's had it. Yeah. Which can happen, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like, but anyway, yeah, I'm not like seeing anything with the Pirates that I wasn't expecting to see. I guess like they're not way worse than I expected. If anything, they might be a little bit overachieving, especially when you look at what the bullpen's done. And one guy that I want to talk about in particular, not in the bullpen, like we got to talk about Rich Rod and Crick, obviously, with what they've done. Mm-hmm. But Tyler Anderson in the rotation. I mean, he has a no-hit bid broken up in the 7th inning the other night. And the unfortunate thing for him is even if he would have kept it going, like the Pirates didn't score, like he wouldn't have ended up finishing with a no-hitter because he would have had to have been taken out.
Yeah. He's been a pleasant surprise. He's not really a name that we talked about.
I was upset about like I didn't understand the signing, and then like watching him pitch he was named the PNC Park opening day starter. Yeah. And, like watching him, I was like, what the heck? And then watching him pitch like that, the wind up, it just drives me nuts. But hey, he gets the results. And he doesn't even throw he throws pretty soft, honestly. And I was like, what's the difference between this guy and like Steven Brault? Like, why do you need 2 of those exact same guys on the roster? But this guy, like the way that he mixes up his pitches, he's getting swings and misses, which is insane with him not having a high amount of velocity. Like, yeah, like you said, he's been a pleasant surprise. And not that I want to see, not see this guy on the roster, but he could provide the Pirates with a nice trade chip if he keeps us up as we approach the deadline.
I mean, yeah, I feel like we have to preface that. It's not that we want to see everybody go, but when you're dealing with a rebuilding team, literally anyone with value can be traded.
And it's a starting pitcher who, it's not like this guy. There's a reason that he signed a 1-year deal with the Pirates. Like, It's not like a bunch of people were clamoring for this guy to join their roster coming into the season. And it's not like he's really expected to be part of the future here. I mean, if he is, then so be it. But if he's not going to be here on like a multi-year extension after the year, like why not trade him off at the deadline or before?
I mean, he's been really productive in his starts. I mean, even just the length that he goes in, he's averaging 6 2/3 innings every time he has a start, which, especially when you're talking about how good our bullpen is, that makes your bullpen better, I feel like, because they don't have to stretch out the pitching as long.
Yeah, and you can turn it over at that point. That you're dealing with a bullpen of like either one of Sam Howard or Bednar, and then you got Crick and Rodriguez behind those guys. So,
and those guys have been lights out. They haven't been scored on.
Yeah, like you said, you're almost talking about like the back end, and if they continue to keep this up, we can actually like start talking about them being as legit as those guys. You're starting to talk about like the back end of the bullpens that we had during those playoff years with what these guys are doing right now.
I mean, you could argue. I think there's a legitimate argument. This is like a top 3 bullpen in baseball right now. Just by to those 2 guys alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not like, Dwayne Underwood Jr., I know that he had a little bit of a rough outing his last time out, but like it is what like the results you can't always control. His process has been great. And most of the time he's gotten the results as well. Honestly, the one guy that I'm excited for, and he hasn't gotten the best results either, Oviedo. Like that guy is nasty. I hope that they keep giving him shots. I understand that they might not be in the highest leverage situations for right now. Like I said, you got Sam Howard, you got Bednar, you got Crick, you got Rodriguez. Like Clay Holmes has been pretty solid as well. Chris Stratton is another one that's interesting because he's probably gotten the worst, maybe besides Oviedo, results from a game-to-game basis. Mm-hmm. But it's not like he's pitching bad. Like if you're actually watching these games, he just can't get away with anything. Any mistake that he makes, and it might not even be a mistake on his part, just really good hitting, he's getting punished for. So, yeah, there's not really an arm in the bullpen that I'm like, oh, we can't send out there. Especially because they just who was the guy that they just sent out? Poppin. Sean Poppin, who did not look very good in a short stint here, but he's no longer on the active roster anyway.
Yeah, but even those guys that aren't getting the results numbers-wise, you just look at them, and they're the type of guys you would describe as having the right stuff. It's just not showing up on the scoreboard yet, or showing up in the box score yet. But their arms are promising. The rest of the bullpen is promising. I mean, really good actually, and I feel like that's just even better for the Pirates situationally. Whenever you have guys like Kyle Crick, Rich Rodriguez that you could use as trade pieces. I mean, come July. I mean, like, imagine these guys still have sub-1 ERAs going into June or July. Like, you could really charge whatever you want at that point. So especially if they're going to a contender, if you're giving them to someone like the Padres or the Dodgers or anyone like that that's like looking to win a ring. I mean, a reliever like that is really valuable in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would never bring up the guy's name on here, but a couple years ago, we thought we had a really nice trade chip and a reliever, and things played out differently, obviously. I think that when you look at Rich Rod, like, he could be the piece that we thought that was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really hope,
because they don't have to trade him. Like, if the deal doesn't present itself, but you can charge a ransom.
But that's the thing. If you get a king's ransom for any of these guys, pull the trigger. I mean, we're in full rebuild mode. That's why I'm not disappointed with the way that the Pirates are performing. Like you said, like, they're probably a little bit better than we thought they were. The fact that they were able to get above 500 at one point to go to 12-11, I mean, that was really surprising to me, just because going into the season that it seemed like it was going to be all doom and gloom the entire time. And I mean, maybe this is a closer version to what they really are. But overall, they've been better, a lot better than probably everybody expected.
That's the question I was going to ask before we wrap up with the Pirates talk and go to Penguins talk. Do the Pirates get back over 500 this year?
They're only 3 games down.
They're 3 back right now. They finished up with the Padres, and then they go to Chicago, and then they come home for a homestand, including Cincinnati and San Fran.
I'm going to say yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna say yeah, they do. I'm gonna say they get over 500 whenever they face the Giants at PNC Park. That little 4-game stint. I think that they're gonna win the series against the. I'm gonna say they lose tonight, and then
Brubaker's on the hill tonight. He's going against Darvish, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they're gonna lose tonight, and then I'm gonna say they win the series against the Reds and the Cubs, and then sometime during the Giants, they're gonna get over 500.
Okay. So if they lost tonight, they'd be 13-17.
Yeah.
So I guess that
if they win the series, I'm not saying they sweep. So if they win 2 out of 3 against the Reds and the Reds and the Cubs, they'd be 17-17. Or no, they'd be 17-19. Yeah, and then I'm going to say they win the series against I don't know.
Giants.
Yeah. I'm saying that they're going to get above 500. Okay. I think the bats will figure themselves out.
Well, hopefully, because now when you talk about getting to that Giants series, that's like mid-May, which, by the way, we will be at one of those games. So shout out to us. Going to be there on the 15th. If anybody happens to have tickets to that game, let us know. But the Reds should be right around the point where people are talking about T. Bryan possibly coming back. Like mid-May is the target right now. So.
Man, what's
he didn't
crazy
get the first game that we went to. So
whenever he was initially injured, we were hoping that he would come back within the first 10 days on the 10-day IL, and now it's going to end up being like 2 months.
Really, honestly, like watching the play, like I could have watched that over and over again and not thought that it was serious at all. Like, but you just never know. The same thing. I mean, injuries. I guess you could say the same thing. Like, even though it was knee on knee, like with the Malkin situation against Boston when he got hurt. Like, I was like, okay.
There's no way that I would have looked at that and said, yeah, he's missing 23 games.
Yeah. So you just never know. We're not doctors. But okay, we're going to move on and talk some puck. We will obviously tweet that out to let everybody know that we're no longer talking about the Pirates so they don't have to be miserable. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. Do you guys want the good news or do you want the bad news?
There has to be with the Penguins.
The good news is we saw a lot of familiar faces return to the lineup from the time of our last show to the time that we are recording this show here on Cinco de Mayo. Kapanen came back. Evgeny Malkin came back. Frederick Gaudreau came back. However, in the process of that happening, there was no way that anybody could not get hurt as well. And
the hockey god said, "You're saying you're going to take. I'm going to give you 3 back, and I'm not going to take one." Yeah, right.
Exactly. It was never going to happen. As I was sitting here talking about this too, I realized I didn't put one of the names that is hurt. So Evan Rodriguez was hurt. Took a shot, friendly fire, hurt his ankle. I honestly, again, getting back to like not trying to be a doctor, but just going based off what my eyes see, thought that was like pretty severe. I was like, okay, he might not be back. And then it's day to day. So he could be back in the fold if they so choose. We're not sure. He's one of those guys that like fighting essentially to be the 12th forward. So he's out for right now. Also, Mike Matheson, who was playing very well with Cody Ceci. We had that stability on the back end for so long. We knew our pairings night in and night out, and for the most part, they were really good. Again, friendly fire. Tristan Jarry shoots a puck up into his face, trying to clear it out of the zone. And who knows the severity of that? All we do know right now is that he's out week to week. So obviously it's not just like sore. Like something, yeah. I don't know if it's like an orbital bone. I don't know exactly where it hit. He was able to skate off on his own. Like he doesn't have a concussion or anything like that, I don't think.
I mean, it could be his orbital bone. I mean, it could be actually something with his eye too. We don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that even if it is something with his bone or anything with his face, maybe he can wear a shield eventually and come back sooner than other injuries it could have been.
Yeah, like a John Marino case or something like that when that happened to him.
Exactly.
So hopefully we do see him back sooner rather than later. And again, going back to like the beginning of the season, would have never thought like he was a key piece for this team. But the way that he's played with Cody Ceci, and then obviously you have your other pairings, like it's you just have that consistency, and that's what you want. Those guys know how to play with each other, and they've been doing it really well. So if not him, we've seen Friedman playing with Cody Ceci recently, and it's kind of been mixed results. Now, Friedman is a guy that's right-handed, so he's playing on his offside. I know he scored an empty net goal last night, which, by the way, Shane Goss is fair. Go screw yourself. But you're asking a pretty tall task of a guy that you really never asked anybody else to do. Like, we've been true to these lefty-righty pairings for as long as I can remember, honestly. Like, under Sullivan, even going back to, like, I'm not even going to mention who was here before Sullivan. Even going back to before Sullivan with these pairings. So Mark Friedman is really going to be the guy that breaks that. I mean, when you have Juuso Rico, who you decided to give a new contract to, when you have a POJ waiting in the wings, I mean, it's weird to me that Friedman's in the lineup right now.
Even if they was going to play above Ricola and POJ, you have a Chad Ruhwedel who literally did the exact same thing this year. Whenever Chad was playing, most of the time it was on his offside. So I don't know what Mark Friedman brings or like what they think he brings that one of those three do not bring. But it is weird that they're going to play a guy on his offside over a couple guys like that. Like we know that Ricola is not liked by Sullivan's for some reason. POJ still down in the minors, but like Ruhwedel is sitting right there. You literally played him on his off wing for like almost every game he's played this season. Why not play him over Mark Friedman? Like I just don't get the attraction there.
I mean, honestly, I like Mark Friedman. I think he's a decent enough player. I guess it's odd to me that, like I said, they're willing to break a trend that they've had for so long for him.
Yeah, and that's more so what I'm saying is like you've already broken the trend with Ruhwedel, so like why wouldn't you just put him back on the left side if you're going to play someone on their off wing because he's already done it and he was productive at it. Like he was still a positive defenseman on his offside.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they feel like Friedman
can't be, but
well, most of that time that Ruhwedel was doing that though was without Friedman here. So like maybe they feel like Friedman is better at playing on the left side than Ruhwedel was. Like it might not look like that to us. I don't know. Like I said, it's been kind of a mixed bag. You looked at that first game against Philly, like which was his first game back in the lineup as well, and it was terrible for everybody. So it's kind of hard to just harp on his performance. And then yesterday, I thought was a pretty solid performance all around. 2 of those goals we put in ourselves. Like that should have been a 7-1 game. So they played a pretty good 200-foot game yesterday. So, but it's just, again, going back to, for as long as I can remember, when they have the ability to, they got lefty-righty pairings. And we got a righty-righty pairing, which those guys too, like when you look at it, who out of them is the one that's like, there's not, when you take Mike Matheson away from Cody Ceci, he looks like a completely different player, and neither one of them have that ability like what John Marino brings to his line with Pedersen or what Chris Letang brings with Dumoulin. Like, who's going to be that presence on that pairing?
Honestly, I mean, I feel like they probably would like it to be Ceci maybe, but I don't know. Neither. But
even there, he started to say Friedman.
Yeah, I literally started to say Friedman, and but then I had to second guess myself and said Ceci. I don't know. I mean, realistically, any of the guys that you bring up, I feel like unless it's POJ, don't really have that like X factor. Like, okay, this is like the head defenseman of this pairing.
Well, no, I'm just talking about as far as looking at their game, like being the puck carrier.
That's what I mean.
The skater. Well, see, I feel like Ricola, that's the only thing that he does do well. And also with Ruido, like Ruido's comfortable playing with a puck on his stick, at least more so than I think a guy like Mark Friedman or Cody Ceci are. I don't know. It's just a weird duo for me. But hey, we'll see. Maybe it was just because we're playing the Flyers. Like maybe it's not going to be Friedman the rest of the way without Matheson, if that's the case, for as long as that.
I mean, could be. I would like to see Juuso Riikola. I mean, he's so underused, and he's going to be on your team next year as well. Like, why give him a 2-year contract in this past offseason if you never play him?
Why did he sign it?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I understand, like, if he's not, like, one of your top 6, like, if he's your 7th defenseman or if he's your 4th lefty, like, okay, fine, whatever. You're not making a ton of money. You haven't been super productive, so I get it. But, like, even if like you're not your fourth lefty, you're taking your right defenseman and putting him over you. Like if you're him, like what are you thinking? Like why am I not getting a shot here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, Sullivan just must really not like him that much. I don't know why. Maybe he has the Ian Cole syndrome, and he just doesn't like him.
they couldn't be more like the thing.
But
with
they're
Cole
completely different.
Literally just defensive, shot blocking. Riikola, if anything, he doesn't do much on the defensive end. So I could honestly understand why Sullivan has some frustrations towards him. Like he doesn't play a 200-foot game and he's a defenseman, but he's not going to get any better not being given the chance to play. It's like at any level. It's not like this guy's playing in the minors or anything.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe it's a different pairing tomorrow night.
I really thought that he would get claimed on waivers, by the way.
I thought he would too. I mean, it seems like someone could easily claim him and at least do the same exact thing he's doing here, not playing in him. But I feel like on a lot of NHL teams, he could probably crack their like bottom pairing. So why? I don't know. I don't get it.
So with the returns of these guys, we've seen a little bit of change to the lines. So we knew Malkin and Kapanen were going to play together. We got Jason Zucker playing with those guys. So we do see the Carter McCann Zucker line broken up with Zucker moving up to that second line. Right now, Carter and McCann playing with Freddie Gaudreau. So we brought up, like, is this guy going to play the wing? So 2 things. We can talk about these guys' returns for like after. But the first thing I want to bring up, now that we've seen Gaudreau play on the wing a little bit, is it going to be him or Evan Rodriguez if Evan Rodriguez is healthy? Because he's day to day, so like I feel like at some point he's going to be ready to play.
I feel like if Evan Rodriguez is healthy, he's still the winger that they want. I feel like now granted it's only been for a couple games, but I feel like he's been more productive, or like 1 game actually. But either way, he's been more productive as a winger than Freddie Gaudreau was. It's only been 2 games, but I feel like Evan Rodriguez would get the call there beforehand. But I don't mind him there, even if it is not Rodriguez. I still like Gaudreau at wing. I think that it still works. I mean, like you said, like they're really only fighting for that 12th spot on the forward group because you know who the other 11 are, and they're not moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what it comes down to too is if it is Rodriguez, does he literally just take that spot on the third line with where Gaudreau is right now? Or is something else changed? Like, do we see Tanev play with those guys or something and Rodriguez on the fourth line? Or did we see Zucker back with those guys? I mean, I really don't know.
Honestly, I have no clue. And I think it just goes to show, like, Sullivan likes his pairings. He doesn't like his lines. So he likes Jake and Sid as a pair. His duos. He likes Jake and Sid as a duo, Malkin and Kapanen. We see Carter and McCann. Like, he likes that as a duo. That bottom line, I don't really know. I guess you could say Bluger and Zach Aston Reese. He likes as a duo.
I think so.
So
because we have seen Tanev not play with those two at times. Like, if those two are both healthy, those two stay together.
So I feel like Rust. I feel like is the obvious choice to just stay on the top line, even though he's not part of that duo. Like it's been working, but the other three, I mean, just makeshift whatever's working. If Zucker's not working with Malkin, I guess you could try Rodriguez up there. You could try Tanev up there if you want to. I mean, just try to see what fits best because we have ideal lines of what we think works in our head, but whenever they go out and actually do it on the ice, it might not work. So I'm not opposed to them trying Evan Rodriguez on the second line with Malkin for a couple of games or anything like that. But I mean, we don't really have a couple games to figure it out left. We only got 2 games left of the season, and then it's playoffs. So if you're going to experiment, it can't be for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I wonder if Tanev plays in one of these final 2 against Buffalo. I mean, he's been with the team on the road trip. It just seemed like there wasn't, because he played back-to-back against Philly. Like, it's kind of hard to just jump in there in that situation, which is kind of why I was surprised that Gino played the first one. I thought he'd return for the second one, just so he wasn't playing back-to-back nights. But let's talk about that real quick, Gino's return, because
Penguins are better without him, by the way.
Obviously, because the team played so poorly in his return, we knew that was going to happen. Like, we knew it was going to happen before the game started. If they played bad, what the takes were going to be like. But those aside, it wasn't like he wasn't on the ice much. They were in shorthanded situations. Like, we really just didn't get to see a lot of Evgeny Malkin in that first game. And then game 2, again, it didn't really stand out a whole lot to me until that play where Jason Zucker scores. And it looked like, obviously, great job by Kapanen as well. But that feed from Gino down to Zucker, and then Zucker with finally the hands show up, which has really been the only thing that I think has been missing from his game, is that finish hasn't been there. And so to see him score in back-to-back games now. But what have we thought about not just Evgeny Malkin's return, but also Kapanen and Gaudreau's?
I think they're huge. Nothing against like the other guys that have been playing, but they did their roles well. But I think the fact that you get Malkin and Kapanen back, the duo that was playing so well before Malkin got hurt, and then adding Gaudreau back as well, just ensuring that center depth that you have on the team, and he's able to play wing. I think it's huge, especially going into the playoffs. Like, I don't get it. I do not understand why anybody says that the team is better without Malkin just because the team was performing well without him. Like
they're performing well before he got hurt, though. Like, he was on a tear.
You cannot look me in the eye and seriously tell me that Evgeny Malkin or the Pittsburgh Penguins is better when Evgeny Malkin is not on the team. I just don't get that. It's kind of like whenever they say that the team is better without Chris Letang. Like, you sound like an idiot. I'm sorry. There's no way that either of those things are possible. Like, if you want to question whether he goes on the first power play unit right away or not, that's a different story. But to say that the entire team as a whole is worse just because he's in the lineup and he hasn't been playing for a month, that's just so stupid to me. Like, he was on the ice for like what, 1 goal or something in that Monday night debacle. Like, so what happened to the other 6? That was Malkin's fault too. Like, people piss me off with their stupid takes. I hate it.
I understand the power play point to an extent. But like, even that was starting to trend in the right direction right before he got hurt. It's just like he got hurt and things just kind of stayed as if he didn't. Like, the team still was playing really well. The power play creeped into that top 10. I think they're at 8 now. or at least they were during one of those yesterday. They scored. Obviously, Marino scored late on the power play, so maybe they're even 7th right now. I don't know, but they're in the top 10 in terms of power play right now, which is insane to think about from where they were at the beginning of the year. But yeah, they were clicking on all cylinders. I understand the frustration of seeing a guy like Jared McCann come off that top unit, but you know what it does? It makes that second unit even better, and we've seen them as well contribute on the power play, like evening those up to the point where you have guys like Jeff Carter, Jason Zucker, Jared McCann, John Marino on a second unit. And if Mike Matheson were healthy, him as well, like that's going to be lethal because you can rely on them as well, not just that first unit. So Evgeny Malkin coming back makes the power play stronger, not just in terms of the top unit, but also evening out the 2 units. And obviously, they're a better team at 5-on-5. Like, it's just stupid to even try to say that they're not. I mean, again, does Kapanen potentially play a little bit different with a guy like Evgeny Malkin? I think we saw maybe 1 or 2 examples of that being the case in these 2 games where he's got to be a shoot first guy. But listen, that's on Kapanen. Like, that's not on Gino. Like, Kapanen has to stay the same player with and without Evgeny Malkin on the ice. And that's to be that shoot first guy. Yeah.
I think that'll come because we saw that a lot whenever they were playing together. Like, yeah, Kapanen had like the playmaking ability with Malkin as well, but he was also not afraid to shoot, and that was before the injury. Now, maybe it's just because it's only been a game or 2 that they've been back together that they need to get that chemistry back and need to get used to what's happening. But I'm not worried about Kapanen.
Yeah, it's funny because we mentioned Kapanen and I didn't bring him up about the second unit. Like it would be an option for the second unit as well, and I'm sure he'd be on it. But yeah, like I was just starting to think about people compare him to a young Phil Kessel. I definitely see it. I think that like McCann might have the heaviest shot. I think Kapanen overall, though, might have the best shot on this team. It's got to be him or McCann right now. Like, Gensel and Rust are probably the best goal scorers. Crosby. Like, he is what he is. But, like, Kapanen, I think the placement of his shots might be the best on this team. And it just reminds me of a young Phil, and I definitely see that comparison. So, shoot first guy. But Phil was a little bit of an underrated passer as well. Like we saw his playmaking, especially come into play while on the power play as I'm talking about it. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited about this team getting these guys back. I understand that there's going to be some bumps along the road trying to get these guys reacclimated with each other. And we only got a couple more games to do before the playoffs. But overall, they're a better team because these guys are back. And whether it's Gaudreau or Evan Rodriguez as that 12th guy, I really don't care.
Completely idiotic if you think otherwise. I don't care. That's so stupid. And I'm hoping that Tanev will play at least Saturday. I'm hoping he just gets at least 1 game in before the playoff starts, just to get his feet wet a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anything going on with him. I'm going to see if there's been anything about him today.
Yeah, because I mean, if you fill out that lineup, and have that 4th line of Tanev, Bluger, and Aston Reese, if that's what they want to do. But I would guess that they'd probably start out with that. If we go into the playoffs and Tanev is back and Rodriguez, well, even if Rodriguez is playing, I think that they go into the season or to go into the playoffs with that second line having Zucker still on it, having Rodriguez or Gaudreau, whoever that is, on the 3rd line, and then keeping the 4th line what you ideally want it as. With that shutdown line. And I'm really hoping that Tanev comes back. I mean,
so he was considered questionable. He was considered questionable to play last night, as was Rodriguez, though. So we'll see. We know that it's going to be considered a game time decision tomorrow for the lineup, but these guys might both be options to rejoin it. We'll see about Rodriguez, but if Tanev can go, we know he'll be in there. So, all right, moving on. We are, for the time being, in first place. That is with 2 games at hand on Washington, though. How do you think this all shakes out at this point? Because I know that there was one point where we were like, man, with the Bruins winning all these games at hand, with the Caps having to play the Islanders like 3 straight times, we were like, is Washington going to end up being the 4 seed? They were able to win all 3 of those games against the Islanders. So they kind of weathered that storm. They only did get 1 point in those 2 games with us. But, I mean, how do you think that this ends up shaking out? Who do you think that we end up playing in the first round?
I think that Well, let me see how many points. So if we win both these games against the Islanders, we're gonna, or not the Islanders, the Sabres, we're gonna have 77 points.
Right.
And so the Capitals can get 8 more points, which would put, if they get all 4, they put them at 79 points. But let me see who they play, because
they play the Bruins one time.
Okay, so they do play the Bruins. They play the Flyers twice and the Rangers tonight. Man, it's tough. I feel like just because of the games played, I feel like they're going to end up being in first, even if we do win both games. Because even if we tie, say they get 7 out of the 9 points, or 6 out of the, I don't know however many points.
They can only. You said there's 8 points remaining for them, right?
Yeah. If they get 6 out of the 8 points, would we have the tiebreaker, or would they?
We do.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then. You know what? I'm going to say we're playing the Islanders because they're going to be in 4th place. We're going to be in 1st.
Okay. How does 2 and 3 shake out? Because, like I said, Boston still plays. I do think the Islanders finishes the 4th. I think that's honestly the most set in stone of this.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, how does 1, 2, 3 shake out? So if you think that we win the division and are going to play the Islanders, who's getting home ice between the Caps and Bruins? Because that is going to be a nasty series.
I think that the Capitals will get home ice.
Okay. So, who are the Cap? You think the Caps don't lose the game to the Bruins? Then they lose it somewhere else.
No, I think they lose to the Bruins.
So who do the Bruins lose to?
I think that the Bruins are going to lose to the Islanders.
Okay.
Because they played them in the game before.
Right. Okay. See, I'm kind of on the us, Boston, Washington Islanders train. As long as, listen, if we can avoid, I'll play anybody. And when I say I mean the Penguins. I'm speaking on behalf of them. But I would least like to play Boston. And I would most like to play the Islanders, honestly. Like, I've gone back and forth about Washington. I just want to see how Washington comes into this thing health-wise, and I know that there's some weird stuff going on with them off the ice as well, with Kuznetsov and Samsonov just being healthy scratches for disciplinary reasons. Also, shout out to TJ Oshie, who his father passed away, so our thoughts are with them as well. That's why he's been away from the ice. But I am, man, if some of those guys aren't going to be able to start that series or something, like Ovechkin's hurt right now, Carlson's hurt right now. Like, that's in limbo.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want to play Boston in the first round. I keep going back and forth. I thought I was set on the Islanders, and then I started talking myself out of that because of Washington's.
It's crazy
situation.
to even consider that the Islanders would be the choice, seeing what we saw 2 years ago.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I get it's not the same Penguin team, and it's not.
They are who we thought they were.
But the Islanders swept us, and we looked embarrassing in it.
Shane Gostisbehere 2-game suspension.
So you're telling me that the
rest of the season.
Hold on. Listen, I do not care that he got suspended. That's fine. What he did was dirty. But you're telling me that he got a 2-game suspension, and Tom Wilson did not get a hearing and just got a $5,000 fine for pushing Buchnevich's head down with his stick into the ice, then punching him in the back of the head, and then taking Panarin like a rag doll, grabbing him by his hair, throwing him down on the ice, almost smacking his head off the ice, and then proceeding to hit him. I do not get what player safety does, watches. I don't even know if they even look at like the games. If they see Tom Wilson, they just throw it out because they don't care enough, because they're a bunch of goons that were basically the same players as him in the league anyway. Bunch of pylons on the ice. I do not get it. George Peros is an idiot. They are just a bunch of crooks. I cannot stand the way that player safety is run by the NHL. The NHL is a terrible league in itself. Great, best sport, worst league. It's been said multiple times. I hate the way the player safety is doing this. I just don't understand it. Somebody is going to have to be killed for them to take anything seriously. It's just the consistency too. How does that get a 2-game suspension and Tom Wilson gets a $5,000 fine? I don't understand that. Like someone's going to have to be like not be able to play again for them to take anything seriously. And even that, I don't even know if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know, because I would say, like, and not that it would have been justifiable for them to do it, but if it wasn't called a penalty on Wilson on the ice, like, because Gostisbehere was called for a penalty when that happened, like, but that still isn't good enough reason. But Tom Wilson got a 10-minute penalty for that. Like, and it didn't even seem like they looked at the Panarin thing. Like, they did.
They literally listed that it was because of the bitch emphasis. They didn't look at the Panarin stuff.
Yeah,
that's so insane to me. They just don't care, and the fact that player safety is just run by a bunch of goons who did the exact same thing. It's a bunch of people that was literally on the ice for hitting and fighting. You want to know how many career points George Parros has? 36. That's it. I'm pretty sure if you put me on Sid's right wing for the amount of time that George Parros was in the NHL, I could get 36 points. So why do you have these types of players? Like, why wouldn't you have players? I said have players that have been suffered from hits like this, that deal with that have dealt with concussions or CTE, are getting hits like this, and have those be the guys that are really judging this. It's an absolute joke. The way
I would say even a guy like Daniel Carcillo, who kind of played with an edge himself, but has, spoke out about the concussion issues that go on in the NHL. Like, yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's a willingness to change the process at all right now from player safety. And people talk about, like, they wouldn't do anything because it's like Tom Wilson's good for the league or something like that. But when you have the Rangers, who are the richest franchise in the NHL, putting out a statement like they did, speaking out about the NHL's player safety, and George Parros specifically, like, literally said his name in their statement, like, that's not good for the league. So you can say that, like, Tom Wilson's good for the league, but when you have incidents like this causing a team like the New York Rangers, who, even if you're not a fan of the NHL, the New York Rangers are, because they are the most lucrative team in the sport, putting out these types of statements, speaking out about you and your department directly, that's not good for the league. So I don't know that this is going to force change. But I definitely think shout out to them for putting out that statement, because I do think that that's a step towards getting to that point.
Every other team in the league should have put out the exact same statement.
That would have been interesting to see all teams kind of lock arms and do it, because
literally
the Rangers didn't happen against them. So,
dude, the same night, the Capitals tweeting that meme of Tom Wilson.
Yeah,
what an absolute dumpster fire of a social media worker that is. Like, what an asshole. Like, I don't get it. What in your mind did you think? Yeah, this is a good idea.
Yes or no? Was that person fired?
No, they weren't. 1,000% no.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. But, like, it's not just one person. That's the thing. You know how many people that has to go through before that gets posted? Like, that had to gotten approved by other people.
Yeah,
like, it's not just some intern sitting there like, I'm going to put this out.
But that's the thing. The Washington Capitals are not self-aware to what Tom Wilson does. Like, it's kind of like having to go. I tweeted about it. Capitals fans and just everything surrounding that team, they have to go through the realization about Tom Wilson that Penguins fans had to go through with Matt Cook. Like, yes, and accepting, like, yeah, he's a dirty player. They have to understand, like, what he was doing on the ice, what he does on the ice. And they just don't do that. Literally, they deny everything. They're not willing to say anything towards him that's bad. He's not a dirty player. What he does is clean. All like that stuff. That's a bunch of bullshit. There's no way anything he does is clean. I do not care. It is so. I'm sick of it, because it's not even the Capitals' fault. Like, like, they're gonna let him do what they want. Like, because he gets no repercussions from the league. And if he's not going to get reprimanded by the league, why should the team do it? So I fully understand why the Capitals treat him the way he does.
Yeah, and it's why, like, even though he does all these things and we talk about him in this light, it's like teams would be stupid not to want him on their team, because it's not like he's being disciplined by the league for these actions. So if he's still going to be able to go out there and score 20 plus goals.
Yeah, that's the thing. I saw Ryan Whitney tweet out that, like, every GM in the NHL would want Tom Wilson on the team. I'm like, yes, that is true, but that does not make him any less of worse of a player than he actually is. And by worse, I don't mean skill wise. I mean, like, just dirty scumbag.
The other thing that was weird about Ryan Whitney's tweet was like saying, "Oh, like he didn't get suspended," like as if that justifies what he did. Like we knew that he wasn't going to. Like that doesn't make it a justification of what happened. Like nobody thought that the league would actually come down on him, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have, or that it was a clean play, or that's just the nature of the game, or any of those stupid sayings that you can throw out there. All it means is it's backing up what we already knew, in that the league is just, it's in a bad place when it comes to player safety.
Dude, I just I get so pissed off when I talk about this stuff because I can't stand any of it. I mean, and especially when it comes to the Capitals fan to defend him and just troll because of him. Like, imagine if he was on a different team and he did that to Ovechkin, or if he did that to Nick Backstrom or John Carlson or anybody like that. Like, they would not be saying the same things that they are, and I it's because he's not on their team.
We saw how Caps fans reacted when we saw a guy like Trent Frederick going after Ovechkin, and that was a very small part of what would happen if there's a guy like Tom Wilson going after him.
Yeah, I just be more self-aware. Like it's like they even the people, their teammates on the team, like Lars Eller today, saying that Tom is misunderstood and that what he does is like not actually bad, and that a lot of this happens anyway. It just doesn't get the limelight that it does because it's not Tom Wilson doing it. I'm like, shut up, dude. Like, saying he's misunderstood like he's a little kid, like some sad little kid. Shut up. You sound like an idiot.
It's tough too, because like as a teammate, it would be like, what do you do in that spot? Because you could say no comment or anything like that, and then people will just read into it anyway. And he's going to defend his teammate, like, regardless. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. For his teammate, they're put in a bad spot. And for him, let's talk about just, like, him, for example, because they play a game here in a couple hours against the Rangers, who have apparently brought up a couple of guys from the AHL that are, like, just that type of player, like a Colton Orr type, which I'm pretty sure he's actually he's a name that I saw. So I didn't even know he was still playing hockey in any capacity. Mm-hmm. Apparently he's going to be on the Rangers roster for tonight's game, probably play about 3 minutes of ice time and go after Tom Wilson. Like, so now you're making your players of the league police the game, as opposed to you as a league doing it. And you're going to end up getting Tom Wilson. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but that's what's going to happen. That's what it's going to take, because you're not willing to do anything about his actions that wouldn't actually physically hurt him. Somebody's actually going to physically hurt him.
Yeah, I've said that multiple times, that if the league actually cared about their players and policed it well enough, and not even just player safety, referees on the ice as well, if they actually police the game well enough, players would not feel the need to take it into their own hands. I mean, you saw what who was it? It was on a Cameo. They were talking about the Tom Wilson hit.
Was it John Scott?
No, it wasn't John Scott. But I completely forget who it was. But they said that he's like, you know what I would do? He said he would run the goalie, and like he would make sure the puck is getting dumped out and into the corner and just absolutely annihilate the goalie. And just send a message to. I'm like, listen, I fully understand that mindset, but that's to me that doesn't change anything Tom Wilson does. I don't think that even hitting him, I don't think that changes what he does. We've seen him get hit and fought by like guys like look at Pittsburgh's love child to some of these fans, Ryan Reeves, that they love so much. Like, yeah, that's what he's known for. He's hit Tom Wilson. He's fought Tom Wilson. It does not change a thing. So I don't see the fact, like, trying to, even whatever they do tonight, Colton Orr, bringing up that one prospect that's huge and could fight people. I don't think that changes the way Tom Wilson plays. Like, I don't think he's going to be scared to do anything because of that.
The game, by the way, is on NBCSN. If you want to check it out, I believe it's a 7 p.m. puck drop, which means it'll probably start at 7:40 for us people on the East Coast. So, but anyway, I'm in full agreement with you. We've talked more about this one topic than anything Penguins related, but I knew that was going to happen if it got brought up. I did have it to bring up, so that's fine. But it's a conversation that we could continue to have, and that I think the league needs to actually sit down and address, because Tom Wilson is a huge problem. He's kind of, at this point, I feel like the root of it. but it's not going to be the last incident like this. And somewhere along the lines, there's going to be another Tom Wilson in this league. I'm sure of it, if these things continue to happen.
Yeah, I just it's like, you know what I would have done, and this is my completely non-biased opinion towards Tom Wilson. I feel like I have to say that as a Penguin fan, but probably the majority of the people in the league, and not just Penguin fans or NL East or NHL East Division or whatever we are now, fans probably feel the same way. Like, after what Tom Wilson did, and just with the run of what he's done over his entire career, I feel like that at some point I would do like, okay, you're suspended for the rest of this season. You're suspended for playoffs, and you're basically indefinitely banned from the NHL, and you have to apply for reinstatement. Because at some point you're going to have to do something that is going to trigger him, like, hey, I have to stop what I'm doing. Because these $5,000 fines, also, that's another thing. There needs to be a new CBA, and that has to be taken out of it completely. That is an absolute joke. That is 0.096%. It's not even 0.1, or it's not even like, it's not 0.1% of his salary. It's an absolute joke that is the max you're able to fine somebody. Like, I put no max on it. I mean, look at James Harrison. He was fined like 75,000, 125,000, whatever, for hits in the NFL. Do the same thing in the NHL. Tom Wilson wants to play like that. Fine, fine him $100,000.
I think he needs to sit down, and this needs to be live streamed, by the way. Watch a compilation of all the dirty plays that he's made in the league and justify them on a live stream. It can happen right here and around the 412, actually. Tom Wilson, you want to come on the show? If you're listening, let us know.
I'll gladly bring it on. I would love to sit down with him or anyone.
Eddie, what is going on? Tom Wilson would have drafted Kyle Trask. Yeah, you're probably 24. Right.
Probably.
It's a good thing he's not running the Pittsburgh Steelers.
But yeah, I just want any of these guys. Like, what does player safety even do? They're just a bunch of morons. Like, if you have Tom Wilson has had multiple hearings with player safety before. He didn't even get one with this last incident, but he's had multiple hearings. What do they do at these hearings? They're looking at what he does, and they're like, okay, that's not bad. You can go. Here's a $5,000 fine.
Well, here's another thing too. It's because he had a, in their eyes, clean slate from his previous incident up until the Boston incident, right? So essentially he had a clean slate. So they had to look at that as if he didn't have a track record at all of all these previous incidents. And I'll be honest, I don't necessarily agree with the whole, like, I think that you have to look at the play in itself and not just go based off like the guy being a repeat offender. So I can kind of understand that, I guess, but
look at the play itself, and he didn't even get a hearing.
No, yeah, I know. Like, I guess,
like, not even just if you break it down, like, just by the two players of what happened to them. Bush Neves, he shoves his stick down on his neck and shoved his head down on the ice. He could have broken his neck, then punched him in the back of the head. Panarin does not have a helmet on. He grabs him by the hair and slams him onto the ice, almost slamming his head on the ice. And listen, people thought we were over dramatic when we were saying that Mason Rudolph could have been killed. Artemi Panarin could have been killed. If his head hits the right way on the ice, he could have been killed. There's no, and the fact that even happens is an absolute joke, and that the league does nothing about it is an even bigger joke.
And there's only a few games left in the season, so it's like, when I say Artemi Panarin's out for the rest of the season because of this, it's like 2 or 3 games. But still, the fact that one of your premier players in the league is out because of an action like this, and they didn't even look at it. That's the thing. We're talking about just the Buchnevich play when we talked about the $5,000 fine. Like, this wasn't part of Tom Wilson's discipline. That play had no bearing on what he got.
They probably looked at it and was like, he got kicked out for the Panarin stuff. Like, he got a game misconduct, so we don't even have to address that.
I like the idea that Eddie just threw out where, like, player safety needs to be ran by, like, an unbiased third party, like an independent arbitrator. When I say arbitrator. My eyes are messed up. But no, I definitely agree that should be the case. Like, almost how, and this is a completely different situation, you have to have, like, independent doctors clear people for concussions and stuff like that. Like, why have your own like player safety and have to be the judge, jury, and executioner. Bring in somebody else. Bring in an unbiased third party. I like the idea, Eddie. Maybe it should be you.
Especially when the people that you bring in, like the director of player safety, is George Peros.
That's what he mentioned too. Yeah,
absolute wrong guy.
Yeah, that's what me and my really good friend Mark Mann were talking about earlier. Where we agreed on the situation. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You agree with him, and then he still tries to belittle you. How fun! But then you got that cuck Randy Scott or whatever his name is at ESPN.
He works for ESPN. I watch ESPN. I've watched ESPN for a long time. Literally never heard of that guy. Looked at his profile picture, thought I'd recognize him. Never seen him in my life. So
no,
I don't know what he does. Is he an anchor for them, or like does he work behind the scenes?
Let me look at his bio. Dad of 3, Sports Center anchor.
So how do I not know who this guy is? What is he on at like 4 a.m.?
No idea. ESPN radio sometimes. Views are mine. Yeah, no shit, buddy.
Views are terrible.
Trying to compare the Sidney Crosby situation, which listen, by last I fully say Crosby should not have done that. That was wrong by Crosby to do that. Yeah. However, to try to compare those two situations is an absolute joke.
Yeah, I'm gonna bash my head through a wall.
Like, I can't wait for the ESPN to have the NHL again because that's the type of coverage you're gonna get. What
time do I go on ESPN? 4 a.m. We have the 4 a.m. the 4:10.
Literally, 10 minutes. What I'm looking forward to for the NHL going back to ESPN is the NHL on ESPN jingle and the possibility of Gary Thorne calling games.
Does it? You think it happens?
I think so. I think ESPN just says, "Hey, whatever the Orioles are paying you, we'll pay double." Because to me, he's the best. He's the best NHL announcer of all time.
He can do both. I'm pretty sure. Like for all those years, Emmerich was doing the Devils games and still NBC. Mm-hmm. And then is John Forsland still going to be with NBC when he takes over in Seattle?
No idea. But I mean, I'm hoping they get their Gary Thorne for the NHL on ESPN, and I look forward to hearing the NHL on ESPN jingle. And besides that, I look forward to no part of the NHL being on ESPN because of the morons that you have talking about the NHL on that network. They have no idea what a hockey puck is.
Yeah. I don't know. We can leave it there. You guys all, literally every person that watches this, listens back, whatever it might be, need to download the Viget app. Get in on the action. Use the word Crowworthy, CROWWORTHY when you sign up, and then we will get you in our betting league. It's a brand new sports betting social app where you keep track of your bets. We create a leaderboard. At the end of the month, it resets and ranks you, obviously, from top to bottom on that leaderboard. You bet coins, not real money. And what else can I say besides that? You can use those coins to win prizes. I know there's a PS5 on there. I don't know if there still is. It's fun, but I suck. I would say the same thing. Stink. I'm sorry. I went a little too far saying suck. I just glanced real quick. Sorry. You don't suck. You stink. But it's been a lot of fun. So shout out to Viget. Make sure you download the app, reach out to us, and we'll get you in our league. Eddie, I don't know if you're still in here. We need to collab soon. I mean, our names are so similar. We could just make it like around the 412 Sports Talk or something like that for a night.
Sounds good.
Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Fuck Tom Wilson and let's go Pens. That's the only thing.
All right, well, I'm going to make this one explicit, I guess. Now, I haven't had to do that for a few months, but I guess this one's going to be explicit.
Yeah, so is my Twitter the past few days.
Yeah. Hey, you're passionate. We tell everybody that that's why we're not traditional media. Unlike those people, we're actual fans. It's honest opinions. And most of the time, you're not going to get a filter. We try. But when things like this, this type of discussion.
For the past, probably year, we've been very filtered. I mean, yeah. But Tom Wilson gets me going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we were like Mark Mann's tweets, we would have just been putting asterisks. But, all right. This episode has been a blast. Every episode with you guys is a blast. Shout out to Keeks Barbershop, located at, why am I forgetting his address right now? I used to be
180 Brighton Avenue,
It's
Rochester, PA.
Yeah, I just looked at it. 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. It's an old-fashioned barbershop. Shout out to Cody Coleman for knowing that. You get $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. He's open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 4 on Saturday. Again, that's Keats Barbershop at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. I will be there on Saturday if anybody wants to just, stop by and say hi.
Before we go to the game?
Before we go to the game, yeah. The game is at 3. Tyler and I, if you're going to the Pens game on Saturday, let us know. I mentioned earlier, if you're going to the Pirate game on the 15th, let us know. But if you're going to be at the Pens game by chance on Saturday, let us know. Maybe we can link up. Should I wear? I don't think I can wear the reverse retro. I'm scared about wearing a white jersey at a game.
I've debated that. I mean, that's part of the reason that I don't have an away Steelers jerseys, because I was terrified to get one. And I don't know. It depends. Are you eating at the game? I don't remember. Do you eat?
Probably not. Probably not.
Then I don't think it really matters that much. But you have to be afraid of everybody else at that point.
Yeah.
Kind of like
if I was going to wear it at a game, it would be like in this current climate, where there's not as many people there. We know there won't be people right to our left or right or behind us or in front of us. So maybe we'll see. But anyways, big shout out to everybody watching or listening. We can't thank you enough for listening to this episode of Around the 412. This has been a presentation of Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, fantasy, and so much more. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Around the 412. Follow them at Crowworthy Takes. Check out the Pittsburgh City page for podcasts just like this one, blogs like the one that Najee Harris liked yesterday, and so much more. Until next time, we will see you guys then, and bye-bye.